Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I'm delighted to be joined by Phil Differ and Jim Orr. Welcome back to Barra's Art and Design. Phil Differ, you're in line for a testimonial. Is this your fourth appearance?
You tell me, I just seem to be here all the time. And every time I come here I get lost, so some confusion reigns.
You're always welcome, and I thought today would have been great to be joined by Jim Orr. So because we're talking Celtic Daz, Jim, it's not an
No, let's look at all the contributors you could have picked today. Who's the old guy? Hi, how you doing?
I wouldn't say old, mature, knowledgeable.
Old there.
Experience.
Does that count, old there, Phil?
Old there, yes. We can't get started. I put this here because we will talk about the lines at some stage today. If you're a Celtic Da or a Granda, you'll have seen them playing. But we can't start this show without talking about this guy behind us.
Right.
You were asked to go and collect the head of Jim Farry.
Yes.
And you did.
Yes, I got to recreate what Fergus did all those years ago when he went to SFA, knocked the door and says, give me the head of Jim Farry. I'll tell the story. Right?
Please do.
Yeah, the story is based on, it was made for the Celtic story, which was on 2-3 years ago. I think David Lowe was heavily involved in that, and I think Paul John was chatting to David Lowe and noticed in the corner Jim Farry's head, as you would. And because Paul collects everything and anything, and that qualifies as anything, can I have that please? And being Paul John's unofficial gopher in Glasgow, since he lives in the wilderness of Fife, so can you maybe go to David Lowe and get that? So I'm auctioning David Lowe house in the West End. I'm here for the head of Jim Farry. So for younger viewers, Jim Farry was a bad man. We go over the story. Aye.
I think we need to go over the story. And again, you're so involved at that time yourself, Jim, in the movement that you started with your friends, and Phil's so involved in what he became, I think, famous for, Only an Excuse at that time. I know you'd done a lot before then, Phil, that you were really involved. You were emotionally involved in Scottish football at that time.
Well, I think, the kind of phrase I started using in the podcast is not paranoid enough, and I think Farry summed that up, basically, in that he intentionally withheld the registration of George Cadetti in 1996, and George Cadetti missed 5 games. And the 5 games he missed a semi-final against Rangers, which we lost 2-1 at the time. And if George was playing, who knows? But more importantly, he missed 4 league games. And in the 4 league games that he missed, we drew 1 each at Ibrox, and we drew nothing each at Motherwell. And who's to say that George Cadetti, who went to score 33 goals in 43 games, might have scored a goal or 2 in those games and turned those 2 points into 3 points. So we could have put another 4 points on the boards, and if we'd have beaten Rangers, they'd have lost that point of the game from us. There'd have been a 5-point swing, and they won the league by 4. So, it's an all if, buts and nibbies, but he intentionally withheld that. So why he did it, who knows?
You wonder why he did it.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
You wonder why he did it.
Yeah, we can only speculate.
It's a mystery.
The thing is, though, Phil, I'll tell you what, back in those days when you're talking about what was the shenanigans that were going on behind the scenes, it was great. It was great copy for you. It was great content for you back then.
It was never ending. It was constant thoughts, but you know the thing about all that was the idea that you were kind of dismissed. That oh, don't be ridiculous. How could that happen? These things only happen in Italy and Spain and Germany. It never happened in Scotland. And Jim hit the nail on the head. Not paranoid enough. Absolutely, the things that were going on then, and it was the civil war within Celtic was great for us as well. The kind of panto villains and just villains as well that were involved in it. It was good times, and funny, it doesn't really change because now it's all about who we're no signing, and those people about incompetence, and look at these inept and all this kind of thing, and he's further off, he's gone, he's away, and it never changes, and that's the thing. I try not to let it bother me, but it does, and it bothers me as much now. Anything that as I perceive as being an injustice or a calumny or some sort of jiggery pokery that's going on, I still react the same as I did back in the day when it was all the call it the Farry era, which what it was, because he made sure it was the Farry era.
When you're talking about where we are now compared to back then, you had a laugh there, Jim, because obviously the Celtic board gets spoken a lot about on A Celtic State of Mind, and it's a different kind of frustration this time around because back in those days there was so much incompetence running a football club, and with Save Ourselves came in at a point where the club were basically, they were staring down the barrel of a situation where we had to have an all-seater stadium. We didn't have the means to build it, and Rangers already had one. And we didn't have anybody at the club that you were confident enough in that had the business acumen who could make this happen. So frustration, yes, in today's terms, but nothing like the frustration you guys felt.
Yeah, I think expectations would be the word that kind of best describes things. The expectations now are just ridiculous. They have to win every game, every time. Whereas back then, the fact that Celtic won everything, that's unreal. That's just this is not normal to win everything. So get booed off the park because they're drawing nothing each with Ross County at half time. It's just mad. It's just absolutely mad.
That year spoilt us, basically.
It did, and that set the benchmark for everything that came after that. And just without Lisbon, Celtic aren't the power or the name that they are, and that's why you should always go back to that, and you should always celebrate everything to do with the Lisbon Lions, because they put Celtic on the map and kept them on the map. Without that, I've said a number of times on podcasts up to that point, and you're maybe 2 or 3 years older than me, and Celtic weren't that well known in terms of with Scotland.
No.
Hibs are a lot better known and done very people.
I remember my dad. He used to go to the games. Charlie Tully was his here, and he used to go to the games. And as he described it, they won nothing. They won a game. They were all cheering and happy. And when he got married, my mum got married, and I came along with that. He kind of like prioritised and didn't go to the games, which brings me on to Peter and Braun. That's quite
He threw you under the bus.
Seamless, brilliant.
I can't believe it. Grassed me up for not going to games. His office was straight across the corridor for me. I think they were making a Justice game or something like that and all these things. And Peter used to have, you going to game tonight? No. Right. The reason being, I just become a father and I was being Mr. Responsible and going home and washing away and all that. But Peter's going, oh. And then he goes and drops me in it. He was great up to that point. No, seriously, I wasn't going to games at that point. Mea culpa.
I always remember
Bringing up the rain.
But I always remember. I mean, you did. I'm sure you're going to come into the only excuse how it started, but Jimmy Sanderson in that first episode was just unbelievably good. Do you remember Jimmy Sanderson? You too young.
Yeah, he was just before my time.
Great.
People got to know that Hugh Keevins just now, but Jimmy Sanderson was like Hugh Keevins on acid, wasn't he? He was like.
Do you know, it was a funny kind of thing. It's like back in the day, Aaron and I got first remember living in Cumbernauld, and when the football finished at 5 o'clock on a Saturday, the game was finished, so the final
25.
And you used to switch
So
it half,
25,
basically.
25.
25.
Always 25.
And then one day I was scraping the paper in the bathroom. That great job when you just moved into your executive flat, Cumbernauld, and I left the radio on this time, and Richard Park started talking to this guy called James Sanderson, and there was a phone in, and I go, what is this? This is
Science fiction.
You know, and that's the words. And so these guys would phone up, and they would only be getting like one call every 25 minutes because it was so unusual. So what Sanderson used to do was he'd hook them and he would just reel them in. And he was going, so what do you think this? And the guy would go, oh, James, I think this. Do you think they should do this? And what would you do about that? And then he would say, well, I would change this, James, and do this and do that. And I would bring in this and I would drop that and I would make this. So he goes, listen, tell me, what do you do for a living? The guy would go, well, I'm a joiner, James. He goes, well, you stick to carpentry because you know nothing about football. Next caller. And you could hear the guy going, well, cut and that. And you're hooked. Absolutely incredible how he wound folk up. And he would say to guys, are you accusing me of mendacity? And they would go,
What do you think?
no.
Where's my dictionary?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, and so he would do this and do it. Absolutely brilliant. But it was so listenable. It was just like a revelation.
The big thing he had, and you did it brilliantly, it's just genius again, the fact that if he was getting frustrated, Sandon would say, have you at the game today? And the guy would then backtrack.
That was the line.
And that was me.
And that's when you did the very first only excuse that came out, and it's a guy phoning up, and he's going blah 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 blah, and then Sanderson then gets a bit fed up and says, "Were you at the game today?" And he says, "Well, it was his wife's funeral, James, and I couldn't get along." Surely you got there for the second half. Surely the second half. He said, "Well, we're not going to watch money these days. But if your wife just died, surely she's left you money. So you just keep going.
It was absolutely brilliant. Tony Roper did Jimmy Sanderson, and Johnny did the collar. And the funny thing was when we toured, the only excuse me, we did the tours, and Jimmy died, and we got in touch with the family through Paul Cooney. Radio Cloud got in touch with the family, Sheila, his wife, and the son. I think it was James as well. And we said, listen, if you don't like to dance, oh no, please keep doing it. So we used to do it as a kind of tribute to him. You know, Tony would do it brilliantly, and just do these phone calls. But now it's everywhere. You know, everywhere you look, you can get football, you can get it legally or otherwise. Radio, podcasts, things like that, magazine, ever. But see, back then, the idea that you could voice an opinion on it, and that was everything.
Also, the fact you never actually heard players talking. I always remember something like 77, 78, something like that. It was they're interviewing, I think it was Joe Craig and Colin Jackson after an Old Firm game, and you're thinking, that's Joe Craig and Colin Jackson talking. It was like, you're guys now.
They used to get them on Scott Sport, remember, on a Sunday afternoon.
Sunday afternoon, yeah.
And
His Celtic Daz talk has been.
I know, that's what I mean.
Well, we're away now, that's that.
The old Scott Sport team, nobody can remember it, but and I remember Tony Fitzpatrick was sitting there, the St Mirren guy, and the question is, Tony, when Arthur Motford or somebody said to him, Tony, when you went up to Celtic Park on Saturday, do you think you could come away with 2 points? And he was, no, when we went over to Celtic Park on Saturday, we didn't think we could come away with 2 points. And it was just like, you know, and then they were still on the camera, and he's still on camera, and you can see him going like this, you know, and he's like shaking his head because he knows it's a nightmare. 'Cause none of the guys had any training. It was just like, you're doing it, you're the captain, you're all. And now, of course, they're all very erudite and smug.
Well, they practice on their socials, don't they? They practice all that stuff straight to camera, Phil. You mentioned a great point, though, Jim, about footballers, and you didn't know how they spoke, you don't know what they sounded like. I read an incredible story about Johnny Doyle's daughter, who obviously, Johnny passed in 1980, am I right?
How long ago that was? Jeez.
And she was looking for something to hear her late father speaking.
Right.
And someone tracked down a very brief interview that he did, and it was on Irish TV. Right. And this interview was obviously passed on, but that was like the only snippet that anybody could find of him talking.
Brilliant.
And I had a similar experience with Jim Craig here. I went up to speak to Jim for the Nearly Mocking book. He said, Paul, I've got something to let you hear. And I went up, Phil, and Jim had this wee office in his house up the stairs, and we went in, and he had boxes and boxes of cassettes, because he used to do a lot of radio work, and he had a show where he would speak to guys he'd played with, guys he'd played against, and Jim was very good as a host,
clever man,
and interviewing them. And he had interviewed Nearly Mocking.
Right.
So very similarly, you try and find online or whatever an interview with Nearly Mocking and how he actually sounded.
Yeah.
But Jim had this tape, and he dug it out and he stuck it on, and it was coming at the speakers.
Right.
The hairs are standing on the back of my neck, standing on end.
So you knocked it, you took it away.
I asked if I could record it, and I quoted it with Jim's permission in the book.
Right, good.
Because everything else was in the Topical Times and in all the different newspapers and stuff like that.
Did they nearly have a Falkirk accent?
He did, and he had this at the end of cracking a joke, he had a particular laugh as well. But everybody imitates. So you've got it in your head what it sounds like, and then eventually you hear this.
I went to school with his daughter, Anne. She was in my class at St Modens.
Right.
But I never heard Neil Mocking speak. So. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. But it's funny, like I can remember being at Hampden, our motor broke down, our Ford Escort, my pal's Ford Escort broke down at Hampden, right in remember the big car park in front of the old stadium? You could get parked there because there was so few motors.
Good old days. Yeah.
Couldn't get it started, and Jock Steen came out. And it was a lovely bit of PR, because he just came out and looked, and you're having trouble, boys, and we're going, aye, blah, 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 blah. And he says, I'd hang about, but I don't know anything about motors. So I hope you get it. And he went away, and I can still hear his voice. Because it was like, you know, he'd come down from Mount Olympus to tell us he knew nothing about motors, and then went back up and drove away. And we were going, what a great guy. Oh, well, he wasn't much good to us, was he? You know, he never helped. But I can still remember that. And all the, you know, looking at pictures, all the ones I met, and I did meet all of them, I can still remember their voices because it was so unusual. It was such an intense moment. You meet a football player and he speaks to you, you know. And the only other calls you son, you know. All right, son, when you're getting your autograph and all that kind of.
The fact you'd met them all, but
I always remember Bertie during COVID. you know, Bertie was like, you know, that, oh, son, you know that voice. He was the only guy whose voice sounded like his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that? And I was walking down, I came out Central Station. Every time I come out the side door and go down Union Street, I remember this. I came there the other day and I remembered this. And I'm walking down, and I had I kind of Harrison Ford hat, Indiana Jones. It was during COVID, and I had the mask on, and I had a big long coat. And Bertie's coming towards me, and I know it's Bertie. And Bertie's like, you always ever called Biggie, and he can never remember my name. And he looked at me like, he said, I thought it was you, Biggie. And he says, you're coming down there, look like effing Jesse James, you know. And I was quite pleased with that, a big Western fan. And away he went, you know. But I mean, Bertie was walking up Union Street. There's the kind of Glasgow Bertie. Be pleased with that. But everybody spoke to him. Everybody. I mean, what a character he was. If he'd said, I'm going to be the Prime Minister, folk would have voted for him. You know, he just had that aura. That's me away on talking about Bertie now. But I digress. Aye.
He spoke to you as if he knew you.
Yeah.
He'd a brilliant... See, you know the thing he used to do, and I watched this? Seeing he was walking up Kerrydale Street and folk would ask for their autograph, and he'd say, thanks, Bertie, and go, no, thank you, son, for asking. And he would do that to everybody. And everybody was going away.
He'd always touch your hand. He'd always do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he'd always do that. They always, we've only met him once, but he's full of that, and it's like, you know better than me. You're thinking, how do I know better than you? Because there's a great interview with Jerry McCulloch, and he saw like the tunnel in Lisbon, and says Jerry McCulloch, you'll know better than me. You think, of course I will know better than you. Don't be so daft. I will know better than you.
Talking about the tunnel in Lisbon, wasn't it the Celtic team that Warren started singing the Celtic song?
I know.
That shows you how it's changed, though, doesn't it?
But you would have even staged that. You would have told somebody.
One of them said,
Got a singer in here.
does anybody know the Celtic song? They're all like, what's the Celtic song? You know, I just that's just how it's changed. That's not kind of criticism. Why would they know it? You know, I mean, why would Dyson Weather?
But in terms of the club,
know,
I suppose you.
But the club, you could
should have been and said, this is how we're going to do this.
You would have.
And the fact he did that launch the other day for God knows whatever strip we're doing these days,
Aye.
as my eyes glaze over it, over the strips. Suppose that's for the Celtic Jersey Whisperer. He's kind of, I can see his book. Brilliant book.
No, I can't believe I've not given you a book. Phil, that's shocking. I'll
Coffee table
definitely,
book.
fifth appearance, I'll bring the book.
Right.
Lovely book. But
No,
no, man for jerseys. I mean, if it's like the 1994 jersey just inside the collars at 2 yellow dots, kind of.
Well, I'm going to give you a wee bit of insight into this jersey. So this is the Lisbon jersey, right? And leading up to the final, Umbro, knowing that it was going to be blistering heat that these guys were not used to, Phil, they sent the short sleeve version. So not a massive change, but in the history of Celtic, this is a new jersey. It's a short sleeve version. But also what they did, believe it or not, as you'll know, they didn't put the Umbro on the front of the jersey until much later when Admiral and other manufacturers started ripping off. They knew that if anybody could release a green and white hoop jersey, even though you weren't Umbro, and it would sell. And Admiral got wise to this, so Umbro stuck their logo on it. The Lisbon jersey does have an Umbro logo on the front of it, but you just can't see it. Because back in those days, they tucked the jersey into the shorts. They all did, really. I think if you didn't, you were George Best or whatever.
So there was a wee bit
right down here, right at the very bottom, and it's printed, get this, the Lisbon jerseys, the Umbro's printed in blue.
Aye, that would be, that's right. That was
There you go.
And is there still some kicking about? Do you know who's got
Yeah, I've
which
got
ones?
some great images. Young Neely Mockin's got some examples of it.
And it's a match worn, as they call it match worn for the Celtic Daz. It's a match worn.
It's a
distressed.
Distress.
Match worn, match supplied. It's one of the ones that was in that hamper, Jim, and it's got the blue Umbro on it. So the green and white hoops were tarnished with the blue of Umbro in the Lisbon final.
You know your jerseys, Phil, because you get that, and you get replicas, you get remakes, you get, what else do you get? Is that?
Player spec, no match.
That was one. Do you remember when I was wee, there was that one, right? We all had that. A couple of us had the green one with the white, the one they played against Vojvodina. And then there was another one, the Shamrock strip. It was hideous.
65 is that last time it was that one?
And the big Shamrock. And I always remember a picture in the evening times of Bobby Lennox standing with the Shamrock strip. And me think, whoa, look at that. I don't. Was that up to that was a third strip or something? Or
It was a change.
legendary strip. Never really existed. We just thought it did,
See the interesting
Don't ask
thing
him
about
that,
this?
because I should actually feel like
The
that.
last time we wore that jersey was Jimmy McGrory's final game in charge. It was against Kilmarnock in away.
Yeah.
And we never ever wore it. under Jock.
Not at home.
It might have been,
Scottish
because
Cup time,
sometimes
3-2.
you listen.
65 season. I know
You'll know better than me, son. So
Exactly.
the jersey was never worn under Jock. That Shamrock jersey,
There you go.
and it became something of a an iconic jersey.
Still with Vojvodina. I told you that we still with Vojvodina the other day. That the guy, was reading a book called A Year and a Day about the Lisbon season. Guy, Graham McCall. Anyway, long story dead short. He interviews one of the opposition players of all the teams they played. Vojvodina guy talking about the game at Celtic Park. Last minute goal, shattered. They took centre and the guy passed the ball to him. The referee blew his whistle. He took the ball, so he had the ball. And in 2017, his book, he said, "It's not looking great, but I've got the ball."
All right.
This guy, whatever he is, he's got the ball.
Tommy
He's
again
got the ball, and I've got Jim Farry's head.
Tommy again will say that was the best. Vojvodina was the best team they played against in the run to the final, including in Milan. So they were a good team, as I remember that. Anyway, sorry.
I remember speaking to you the first time, and we were in the kitchen of John McClaverty, who was just about to win a BAFTA
I know.
for the Lisbon documentary.
I won that BAFTA for
You
that.
did. You won the emotion, absolutely.
No.
And the thing
Was he very good up to that point, Phil? And then you come on and start greeting and thought, hold on.
You want me to greet? Right, okay.
But there was two things that strike me about that, because I do listen back to some of these earlier ones, because you forget a lot of the content that you talk about. But two things that struck me. The first one was John mentioned that during his discussions with Bobby Lennox at the time and Bertie Auld, they were talking about a lot of the guys that had passed, and it was almost as if they were fully aware of their own mortality. And you come, when was that, the 50th anniversary? So you jump forward to now, and we've lost even more of them. So the Nearly Mocking thing I spoke about earlier, he passes the baton as the kit man onto John Clark, and John Clark's with Celtic right up until his final day.
Yeah.
And you look at that, and there was a great image, and it was a light shining on the guys that remain in Phil. You've met them all, and year on year, they're being diminished. But there's something the club needs to do to make sure that we never forget the legacy of these guys. What do you think it is? Is it a statue? Because I think Celtic Park, if you arrive there from a different country, you walk around that stadium, you need to know the history. You need to know Johnny Thompson. You need to know Tommy Burns. You need to know the Lisbon Lions, Jimmy McGrory. All these guys should be celebrated around the stadium.
Well, I go back to this. Why have we not got a proper museum?
Yeah.
Why have we not? I remember years ago, I worked with the Sunday Mail, and I used to do this thing called Great Sporting Arenas of the World. So 1 week, 1 month, it was monthly thing, you'd be at Wimbledon. Before Wimbledon, it'd be brought down, you'd be at Armadale Dog Track. I mean, literally, it was just stories, jumps in Corsair Rangers Park, Duncansfield. And one of the times you get sent to the Amsterdam Arena, which was, just like kind of, not just opening, but it was getting, becoming recognised as one of the great arenas because the motorway goes underneath it and all that sort of thing. And I went there, made a museum, and it was simple and absolutely astonishing because it basically celebrated the name of Ajax and what it meant to all the world. And everybody who had played there, there's like a wall, a huge wall with all the guys that had played there. Because the whole thing was bringing in youngsters, training them up the way they go. And you think, God, all the guys that played there. And the kind of thing, it's so simple to do, and yet we've never done it.
It's bizarre.
And when you go anywhere in America, you go to the Boston Red Sox thing, there's a museum there, and you go in and you get caught up. You've never played baseball and like that. Or the story of Ted Williams, all these guys and everything. Babe Ruth and all that, and you know the names, and you go there and they brilliantly market it, and you come out and you want to buy loads of Boston Red Sox
Exit
stuff.
via the gift shop.
And you see it because they've sold the image and that. How we've not got that of all the things that we could have. There should be a museum.
Also, the fact the SFA have got one, man's insult to injury, the fact that
That's very good as well, Jim, isn't it?
That's very good, and you come out of the gift shop if you walk out. But yeah, I think you can name stands after thing. Lisbon Lions stand, drops the stand, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just a stand. It's talking about naming the stand after Ferguson. It's just a stand, and I think even the kind of wraparound thing around Celtic Park is a bit tatty looking sort of thing. But the statue thing, the Celtic way, I mean, the footprint outside Celtic Park is massive now. So to not taking advantage of that is a bit.
No, it's just everybody who comes would go to the museum. People who, like us who don't, we know it all. We go to the museum. It's one of the places you sneak into, and buy. I mean, I remember filming it once, and ended up buying, mugs with the lions on it. And I mean, I really need them. I'm one of them. He's one of them. Gets that T-shirt and all that.
That's hearing.
You know, it's generating money. That seems to be what's being put. You know, put it into the common denominator, the base instinct. It's going to sell money, so they're going to make money out of it. But folk are going to get such a lift out of that. And although I'm not a fan, you know, in terms of his music, I mean, what Rod Stewart does for Celtic, I mean, like Glastonbury, you know, there's bloody Celtic badges and all that other place, you know, and you know, that's not just about, you know, money, that's about something else, like the spiritual element of it, which I'll not go into because I'll start greeting, but there is that bit of it, you know, that's mere links fathers and sons and aunties and uncles, and you know, that sort of thing. There's something there that we're missing out and we're losing out.
I think that's back to the point
about
the fact the board they've been there too long. You need new people in there
you do.
with ideals. I mean, that's nothing against the board.
That's nothing personal.
You want new blood, you want new ideals, you want new everything.
I agree with you.
And there's all these kind of wealthy Celtic-minded individuals out there who've got a few bob who are captains of industry, can do their own thing, and they'd be appalled if they come in and thought, why haven't you done this? Why have you done that? And I think across the city, you're going to start seeing stuff like that with this 49er.
Well, there needs to be a reaction to that, but the reaction should always be like, you know, we're like when you save up, you go your holidays and you've got all that spending money, and then you go there and you don't want to spend it because if I spend it, I'll not have it, and so we'll get, you know, my what would he be? My niece's husband? What would that be? My nephew-in-law or something like that. He's big in banking. That's his thing, and he said, see, like, you know, I remember a couple of years ago, I've got 70 grand in the bank. He says, if they've only got 70 million, sorry, 70 grand, with the interest rates that are available, and, you know, they'll be investing. He says, there'll be more than that, loads more than that. But they like looking at the bank account, and that's the kind of dangerous thing. It's kind of, you're fixated with the number, 120 million quid. Look at that, look how much we've got, look at it. And you're going out and buying players, taking punts on £1.2 million players. There's nothing against the players. They might be brought, it's not their fault. Who wouldn't sign for Celtic to come and say, we're signing you for this? But, you know, we should be doing better than that. And we should be aiming, you know, like, would it not be good to go into European Champions League and do quite well? And we would do that if we just, you know, spent a few money in the right places.
I totally agree, Phil. And one of the points I would make on that, before we dive into Celtic Daz and theatre plays, because there is going to be a segment where I'm able to get right into that. But the example I gave today was the last time we were in a European qualifier for the Champions League was Midtjylland under Ange. And we were forced, due to the fact of bad squad management, we were forced to play a midfield player at centre-half and near Beaton. It became a joke every year. Beaton's playing centre-half. He gets sent off stupidly in that game. And we have to play his backup, who is an 18-year-old who's never played senior football, day and money. Which is unfair on him, but it shows how bad the squad management is. We're going into a qualifier right now as we sit here. We're going into a qualifier with one recognised left back, and it's Kieran Tierney. If he is ill on the day or has a wee injury or whatever it might be, Ian Mura, who's your 250 grand punt from Japan, who's only played 30 odd senior games of football, is starting our qualifier, the biggest game of the campaign. So I can see where the frustration comes in, Jim, especially when you've got all the piles and mountains of money sitting in the bank.
Yeah, I think they have to be careful with money. Don't spend money for money's sake. But when you take such a big risk with it, and I said the podcast last week that at this point in time, if we did play them tomorrow, whoever that team is in the playoff, would we be confident? No, we wouldn't. If we play a Glasgow Derby tomorrow, would you be confident? No, you wouldn't. So I think you have to, you don't want to be too much of a panic merchant or bedwetter or whatever they call it these days. But if you fast forward to the end of August, if we're in the Champions League and we're top of the league, then they've got it right. I may not sign anyone, but they've got it right. But I think even though they're a risk-averse board, they're taking a big risk with the fans. Because if we don't qualify for the Champions League, if we don't have those kind of players, it'll be to the car park with the Sharks again.
I can see big protests arising. I genuinely kind of get the patience only stretches too far for the fans. But you know, we can be fickle, but at the end of the day, we support the hoops, and that's it. You know, but you can't help but feeling that's been exploited in the past and in the future and in the present. You know, it's like we don't need to tell them why we're not signing. We can't get it over the line, or this is a difficult period. It's a bit insulting. I just think, you know, like there's guys that spent their whole lives watching football, following Celtic, and they're basically getting told it's none of your business. We'll do what we are doing, and don't dare, you know, criticise us. And it does wear thin. I just wish they would be upfront and honest about it. And I would love to think that it was Brendan Rodgers that was picking these players. I think I can work with this guy. I think I can work with this guy. Guy. But you just have an awful feeling that there's people in there think that they know better. And you know, there's the guy you got. I heard the other day from a decent source that that Brendan didn't. Ida isn't one of Brendan's choices. Neither was Engels. Was the two guys that were kind of forced upon him. And you know, you kind of wonder, that kind of rubs off a wee bit, because I don't think he does as bad as everybody makes out, but he's not as good as he should be, I don't think, for a Celtic striker. And Engels, I think, is kind of, I don't know, if I kind of flounces about and does some nice things, but I've never seen him impose himself in a game. So you kind of wonder, you know, would you, if you were a manager, if you were Rodgers, would you be happy with that? But what they're contributing?
Well, if the players don't turn it on for you, you get sacked.
Aye.
That's the big thing for him. I mean, and I know things have changed since here, but this is Sean Fallon and Jock's team jumping in a car to go and look at a player.
Aye.
That's what the process was. But with all the data and all the technology that we have, we should be very, very good at recruitment. But a big part of that has to be, does the manager want the player? Because I know that he can't go to Japan to watch someone and all the rest of it. So he's relying on a recruitment team and a scouting network. But it needs to be Brendan's say.
Oh no, I think the buck stops with the manager at the end of the day. And the bit about the fact that when they first came in the door and they signed Lager, Bielka and Roski and all that, and he said he was happy with them. Well, you can't say you're happy with them and then say you're not happy with them. You know, and they didn't see it at the time. And we got out of jail a wee bit his first season. We were pretty poor for up to the March time, and then all of a sudden we just went go over the line and making a ball.
James A. Forrest and Adam Ida.
Dundee. Forrest at Dundee and Ida through that last few months.
Yep.
And then they kind of bottled it up at Ross County, and that was the kind of two combinations. Last year was a bit of a cakewalk. But yeah, I'm concerned. I think I said I'm cautiously pessimistic about this season in terms of where we stand just now. But all you're looking for, I said expectations before. If they do things that you'd expect them to do and you don't win the league, fair enough. But you've actually done what you hoped you would do. If you've got this money and you spent it, it doesn't work out, and the manager's got the players that he wants, and you don't win, that's football. That's what it's like. Even though 90% of fans will go mad.
Aye, no, but
you're
absolutely right.
That's all you can do. And like the cup final, didn't show up on the day, lost the game.
I mean,
that's what he goes.
See the team that ended the cup. See when, you know, we were looking for Yang.
I know.
I mean, like, I'm sitting there looking at
With this contraption on his arm.
I can't believe this. You know, we're looking for Yang and
Johnny Kenny.
Johnny
Save the day.
To save the day. I just shake my head, just like, well, it's no happening. And I mean, no disrespect to Aberdeen. That was a red rotten Aberdeen team. Absolute. I mean, oh God. And that thing, maybe you get there and think, all we've got to do is turn up and all that. I don't think it was that. I just think there was guys there that just weren't good enough. You know, they turned up, gave 100%, and it's down there. You know, it's just no good enough. And that, the bottom line, they're no good enough. There's too many guys like that. Who's signing there, guys? I don't believe this. I don't believe Rodgers could get it so wrong. A guy of that experience could be picking guys that are complete duds and haddies and things like that. All the words are coming out now. Duds, haddies.
But that's why if you're not buying the players, then you can't be too surprised if he loads.
Aye, no, you
can't think, well,
absolutely right.
Because you were in, you do the same thing.
Aye, no, he's quite right. If he said, well, I didn't pick these guys. I did my best, and that's it. But if he's picking them all and fails, then I think he would say, well, I didn't what.
Yeah.
But this seems to be this constant game going on. You know, like extending your contract. This is signing talks, and then you'll get a wee. You know, I don't know. When you go into the websites and you see it's a wee Twitter thing, and you get all excited, and it's some guy you've never heard of, or linked with this guy.
Happy birthday.
1.1 million or something like that.
I know.
And a show reel. I mean, give an example. It's like, I'm still playing football, right? And it's the running stuff.
We're playing football. Are you playing?
You still guys are still playing, and I'm not.
He's a goalie, but I'm
long for a goalie.
What do you mean, but? Right?
He's a goalie.
We
No, you're the goalie.
Do you know what we did?
You're the goalie.
Listen, listen.
Phil, you're football players, you've got goalies, right?
What we did, one of the boys with some money in the funds, and we bought one of the big bloody camera. You know, you put it up and it follows the thing with the ball.
Is it a VU or something like that?
I know, and it really is funny. You watch it and you think how good you are, and you're going, "Jeez, oh, am I really that slow?" and all that kind of thing. But I'm in the process of making a show reel, right, on all my saves to prove to you that you can edit anybody into look like a good football player.
Yep.
And one of the other boys who'd scored last on Saturday there, what a game! We get absolutely slaughtered. This boy scored 6 goals, and I mean, honestly, it was like Larson S is going through and doing that thing that Larson used to flip the ball into his other foot, you would drag the ball underneath it. He was absolutely brilliant. The guy forgot to put the thing on, and this guy come off and he said, "Oh, I can't even believe it, I've got that, I'll build me." And Simon was bringing it down, he went, "Oh God, I forgot to put it on." I says, "You're Joe." And so that basically didn't exist. This guy, what a performance. He was pinging him in for we gave me his life and he lost it. So that was that. But my point was, I'm going to get all these, put it all together and just show you that anybody can look good on the show.
I like that, Phil. Are you going to do that? This actually leads us on nicely. The last time you were on here, I was saying, only an excuse, that patter, all that crack, the Scottish football humour, that needs to exist in this day and age on a podcast or something. Is that going to be on your new podcast, that show reel?
That was one of the things, because we were talking about the forget the ball, got on with the game with myself, Johnny Watson and Chick Young, El Chico. And I was, trying to get Steve Clark to see it, so I'm not going to edit it yet. Sent a Chick to try and get Steve Clark. I remember Scotland were struggling
Yeah.
for a goalkeeper, so I was volunteering. But that's one of the things that we're looking to do. And we're going to try and get that done and use that, use footage that you don't get anywhere else. So it will be revealed, and I think you'll be surprised. A few outstanding saves.
Right.
A few that man would have been
Right.
proud of. My
Feather.
all-time Celtic hero.
Well, that takes us out. He was Feather.
Feather.
We're talking Celtic Daz.
I played against Phil last year. There you go.
Right.
We get right to Simpson.
Right, we won 1-0. No,
Yes,
did you score?
He was in goals, no, didn't he? But
See, I've been told
think
Jim's quite a good player.
No.
Jim is a very good player.
no. What? Who?
He's too humble. He's too humble.
Always get
Anyway, they won 1-0.
when he's coming in, he'll come get you.
I think somebody shot and deflected, and then because the deflection you went that way, and then there.
It's only a deflection.
So I deflected with the volume was so good.
Only a deflection.
Only deflection.
Only a deflection. That's a.
There you go.
Right, yeah.
Is Jim kind of Strachan-esque?
He's Jim's very good in the ball. He's very difficult. It's no physical thing, but you're. I'm not like this. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. Behind me, it's kind of jinky-esque the way you play.
Yeah.
You turn and you pirouette and all that sort of thing, and you're very difficult to get close to. You're
Pirouette?
constantly moving. So no, he's a good player.
Thanks, Dad.
Boy can play.
Gordon, we're going to go.
Thanks, Dad.
We're going to go and film this with it.
Did you get that? It wasn't that guy. You.
Jinky-esque.
Phil just said that. Did you get it? You can see it again.
No, Jim can play. There's no doubt about
see it
it.
again.
Jinky-esque. Jim, did you manage to catch one of your favourite subjects? Obviously, is a takeover. I spoke to Tom last week. Did you
Yes, I
chance
loved
to
it.
watch it?
Tom Grant, yeah, loved it.
Good guy.
Good guy. Aye, I mean, he was torn at the time. He'd say he'd kind of foot in the bad guys' camp, and then he sort of kind of came good to the end. But he did a lot to lose. Tom Grant, he had a young family at the time, but he was very much in the sort of Dempsey side.
Yeah.
He just felt, given his personal circumstances, if you were in his circumstances, would you? It's easy to say as a fan. It's easy to say do that, but no. In fact, he still goes to the games. He travels to support his boss. He joined the board as a kind of young guy. He wasn't like that kind of Bob Kelly, Desmond White type of guy. He seemed a little more in tune with the punters type of thing. And that's who he came across on that podcast last week. He came across really well. Did you see it? Well,
No, I didn't see it.
you going to watch this? You're going to watch this one?
I never watched it.
He'll give you the highlights reel.
The light makes it look as if I'm going baldy, and I hate that.
The same thing happens with me as well. It's a Celtic Daz thing. I know. It's a
No, Tom Grant.
makes you look heavy as well.
I know.
Another
I
thing.
put stoned on me. Tom Grant. Many years ago, I was working on a John Thompson story, and Tom Grant. He let me into it was kind of boring and gave me all the file, all the stuff they had in John Thompson, which was letters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's all telegrams and things. but he was very, very helpful. It never happened. This was going to be, it was going to be John Thompson and Sam English, because there's a tragedy there as well. And I'd met Sam English's family and all that, and then, I don't know, Jim verified it. Sometimes an idea just for some reason,
Nah, it just fizzes.
momentum goes and you can't, there's some melt and you're still thinking about it, and then it's gone, sort of thing, you know. But no, Tom was very helpful with that.
And, you know, again, only in Scottish football, and only maybe even with Celtic, could you take a situation as dire as the dark old days of the 90s and turn it into a stage show, Jim. So there's my segue right into Celtic on the stage.
Shameless plug.
There you go.
It's coming back to the
Yes.
pavilion next August, so we'll be shamelessly plugging that every single podcast from now to then. Yeah, but the next play Celtic plays on, Celtic Daz, over to Mr. Differ.
Kindred spirits. Kindred spirits.
He's a genius. I mean, and he's a big influence in me, because I went from being a mild-mannered chartered accountant into sort of writing plays, which is a bit of a leap. And my sister Alison's known Phil for a number of years. And when I had a wee idea for a sitcom, and I said, "Do you think maybe you maybe speak to Phil Differ? Phil, maybe please. Just you talk to Phil Differ." "I can't talk to Phil Differ." "Yeah, it's Phil Differ. Sure, Phil Differ." So, but she organised a kind of coffee, and I met the great man about 10 years ago, something like that. So, and he's just really funny all the time. I'd pass him the script, they come in, he held it up and he went, "It's too heavy." And then the idea I had at the time was a play called Benderlin Baxter, which was going to be about 67 in England.
That's the thing,
And then I was kind of asking, which was at the time quite embarrassed to look back, "Could you help me write this better," sort of thing. But he had an idea about a kind of spoof documentary. At the time, you thought it'd be quite a good laugh, that as his 50th anniversary was kind of coming up. Because Phil knows everyone, basically, the idea was about, it was always written in the stars that England would win the World Cup and then we'd take it off them, kind of thing. And your idea was basically to get Bobby Lennox and John Gregg to be like spoofing it and saying that it was always in the stars when Capricorn aligns with Taurus and whatever. And they're all this parody. And we went to see something in the BBC. Well, it was a coffee, I think, in the light in the big area. And that's just as far as it got. Fizzed
When
away.
you get the BBC involved, everyone
Slowly fizzed away.
horrible death.
But that was my first kind of contact with Phil. I kept in touch all the time because he's a genius. He's just, I mean, get back to the only excuse thing. I mean, that to me is a genius. When you see something that's not been done before,
Yeah.
and you think, wow, you know, I mean, if you look at things that happen in modern popular culture, Oasis say, I know you're a big Oasis fan, but they're kind of the Beatles for the 90s, kind of thing, you know, fucking hammered to you know, but when you come up with an excuse, football parody jokes, you know, no one's done that.
No.
You know, they're the genius to do that. And obviously it's based on Only a Game. You've seen Only a Game.
Well, only because of
Bronco.
your pal Bronco.
Bronco. Actually, I know him now, Bronco. And
Bronco.
and the writing, I mean, it was laugh out loud, tears in the eyes stuff. What was it you had? Pie and Bovril, liquid beef, brown confusion. That's all the Shakespearean stuff. And it's just full of that all the time. And the saddest thing came in. It just good. It was just, and people are still quoting that nowadays. And that was like 40 years ago or so.
It's 40 years next year.
The Sanders thing, people remember the Sanders thing. You know, at the wife's funeral. How long can a funeral take?
Jim, you're right. And even a couple of days ago, I seen the team lines of a Hamilton versus Hearts League Cup game.
Right.
And there was a couple of trialists in the Hamilton team. The first thing I think about is Only an Excuse.
Trialist.
Yeah, as if he was a legend of the game. Trialist.
Which the first way to do the first ever recorded football game was it?
Took place in Scotland immediately after the Battle of Bannockburn. And the two teams kicked the severed head of an Englishman to and fro across the bloody battlefield. It was a dour game with defence well on top. According to the Sunday Post, Dude Berry, who was present at the time. But Pierre quoted it better than me.
Brilliant. It's just brilliant.
No, but you know when you're talking about the unique element of it, I've said to you before, nowhere else, we're not talking Scotland, nowhere else could you have taken the game of football, let's say, in Italy or Spain, and then created what you guys did. I don't know if they have done since, but nobody could have done. There's a certain humour in Scottish football that I think that exists only in Scottish football.
I think you're right. It's interesting. I remember, Murdo MacLeod murdered the restaurant at the White Loch Lomond, the Wayfarer. I don't know if you remember Murdo had there his wife that ran it. And Murdo said, "Come on, come out. Stefan Kloss is coming out. Do you want to meet? I love meeting goalkeepers.
No,
It didn't
he's
matter
said
who
it
they
before,
played.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Stefan Kloss went out. Again, not the tallest guy and all that kind of thing. And I asked him about, comedy and football in Germany, and he said, "No," I said, "we don't have anything like that. You would get, the idea of making a fully football."
Yeah.
And he thought it was hilarious. Can you believe it? And another one moment was, I remember we were in, it was a Player of the Year thing down at it was in the Glasgow Art Galleries. And it was a Player of the Year, some kind of thing. And Johnny was doing a bit of cabaret, doing some voices and things like that. And he started doing Jimmy Calderwood. Remember, Jimmy was off. Jimmy was a lovely guy. And Shaba Laszlo, who was with Hearts, he'd never seen anything like this. And he was like, like the tears streaming down his face. The idea of a guy getting up and making a fully audience icon, and it was so funny watching that. And he said, we never see this, because it's dead serious. But I think you're right. I think that's the unique thing
And
about
there's also the fact he didn't care who you went after. I mean, at the start, we talked about that first one, that Dennis Law, the lawman, so called because his second name is Law and he's a man.
And he was a man.
I mean, it's stupid enough, it's so funny.
But
He's always said it, the lawman, the lawman. Yes.
No, he was. I told you I met Dennis. I must have told this story. It was a Sunday Mail had done this thing, the great awards. It was the top Scottish team and the top players and all that kind of thing. Greatest ever goal and all that. And they were so short, the celebrities I was getting out for. That's how bad it was. And I was when I was talking to Bobby Williamson. Remember they come on?
Yeah.
He was a funny guy, Bobby. He was a very funny guy. And I said, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "At least you played football. What am I doing here?" Met Ronnie Simpson there that night and everything. But it was it. And Dennis was there. And Dennis was strutting about, I mean, like the king. I mean, he knew he was good, put it that way. And Alan Rennie, who was the editor of the Sunday Mail, he's talking away, and I knew Alan said, "Have you met Dennis Law yet?" I went, "No." He said, "Well, I'll introduce you." And he says, "Dennis, this is Philip." He writes for Philip, "This is Dennis." I says, "Dennis," "it's an honour to meet you." And Dennis went, "Yes, it is." Tongue in cheek, I don't know, but he was like, "I know I'm Dennis Law, and I'm pretty."
And you go, I'm going to crucify him now, won't you?
But Dennis was Johnny and Dennis got on very well. Every time they seemed to be a dinner up in Aberdeen, Johnny would be performing it, and Dennis would be there. "Hey kid, hey, you watch your shit, you know that kind of stuff." But him and Dennis got on great, But aye,
What I love about it as well is it's come full circle. So Tony Roper told us a story about his friendship with Danny McGrain and how that developed.
I watched that, and Tony was right. We were awful, we were cruel, and I'd never thought about it. And Tony was saying like he felt bad about, and he's right, But we did it, And I was talking about that the other day. I said I don't look back sometimes. I go, "Oh my God, did we really say that?" and things like that, and we did. But we were emboldened, and because nobody had ever done it before, we were just like pushing the boundaries. But then when you get older, you think back, "Oh, that was a bit much," But at the time, you just went for it,
But then they became great friends and
I
just
go to
an
art classes and
exhibition.
stuff like that. Never.
Happily ever after.
I know.
Did you visit that exhibition, Jim?
No, I haven't.
It was in
Tony,
Coatbridge.
Danny.
Yeah,
Tony-
Tony, Danny,
Tony
and
was-
Jim Scullion.
He was right. Tony was written it years and years. Tony was always kind of, and he'd say, "I did a wee bit of paint, stuff like that," and then he'd show some of his stuff. He was really into it, and Danny as well. And you wouldn't think that, but I think that's a lovely thing, like an actor and a football player.
I know.
And we were kind of like taking the piss a bit and that, and then they become pals. I think that's a great.
That's great.
And Danny is just such a nice guy. I mean, I remember one time walking up Great Western Road and toot the horn, toot, and I looked and it was Danny and he waved to us. And that was all it was. I can't tell you how that felt. I was Celtic legend giving you a wave. He knows you, and you know him. I thought, oh God,
It's the fact that you go out in the streets and there's Bertie and there's Danny. I mean, this doesn't happen to you.
It's just great. I mean, I've done dinners with Jim Craig, and I've been in Tommy Gell's, all of them in the company, met them, spoke to them, all that. He's just like, wow, that's better than meeting. You know, the only guy you can maybe top that, maybe John Wayne, Burt Lancaster, Clint Eastwood or something like that.
Right.
The rest of them, they're the heroes. That's the working class heroes.
You're right, and I'm going to bring Bertie into this, right? So Bertie Auld's brother Ian worked with Willie Maley on the Celtic story, and obviously we're talking about Celtic plays, and we're saying Scottish football's unique in so far as you can laugh at yourself. But I also think Celtic are quite unique. You mentioned Peter Braun there, trying to make a kind of Hollywood-sized movie called Paradise, and you think there's only a few clubs in the world where that would even be a thing. The amount of stage shows, Jim, that have involved Celtic. This is your kind of post-retirement full-time gig now. You do this, and this man to your right is doing it as well. You've seen Celtic Daz in its kind of first run. Talk to us about it. How did you enjoy it?
Brilliant. He's got Raymond Mearns and Bruce Morton, who are brilliant. And it's two Celtic Daz just chatting away in the pub, they're at the game, they're at the pub, they're at the game. The thing is, before I started kind of writing plays, I never thought about the writer, to be perfectly honest. You'd watch the play and think, that's really good, they're dead good, without actually thinking, in actual fact, they're just saying the word, this person over here. And then when I'm watching it, you think, well, that's Phil Differ, that's Phil Differ, it's Phil Differ. It's no them talking, it's all. And it's already current, isn't it? It's all like the Kyogo stuff, it's like kind of, you know, I mean, the kind of ones I've kind of done the kind of nostalgia stuff, because I think the older you get,
No, that's right.
you lean on that, you can have a bit more nostalgia. And what I enjoyed doing is basically doing the research for that. So you're listening to the music of 1965 when you're doing that kind of stuff and watching the popular culture stuff like that. So it's a bit more modern, and it's just really, really good. It's well worth seeing and can't recommend it highly enough.
What's the reaction been like, Phil? Because it was
great.
2 months back he came and we were talking about it.
It was. We did it for the Glasgow Comedy Festival, and it's like all things. And you know, Jim will tell you, you know, you can rehearse it and do it, and in that wee group, you're all happy and everybody's happy and that. But the audience are the jury, and you don't. You know, come the first night, and we only had the one night. You know, we get this right. It sold out really quickly, because you know, Celtic things they tend to. There's a tremendous, I don't know, fan group and fan base there, and they want to see Celtic things. So we had done this thing, we rehearsed it. Raymond and Bruce, I wrote it specifically with them in mind, because Raymond's like, if you know Raymond, quite high energy, crackles, you know, full of energy, and he's, you know, manic and all that. Bruce is the absolute opposite, stillness, you know, personified. I mean, Bruce would come in here and sit down, and you'd turn around and he's there, you know. So they contrasted each other really, really well. Great 2 weeks in rehearsal. We kept it very, very simple. And it's basically, you know, two old guys looking back at their lives and at the present, and the things that start to affect you. But there's always Celtic, you know, and it's in a bizarre sort of way. There's a few pals of mine, and it's almost like guys who stop going to mass and then start coming back again when they get older. There's a lot of guys who kind of moved away from Celtic, and then in their 60s now, and they bought season tickets and they went back to being boys again. And it's quite an interesting thing, you know. And I've got loads of pals, and a pair of them, and they go to the games, and everybody calls them, you know, Statler and Waldorf, you know, the guys out the Muppets, and they sit there and they've got beige bonnets and car coats, and you know, they look at, you know, the young team, and it's all look at them, and, you know, forgetting that they were once the young team and they were there. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in it. And the audience really liked it, and I think the audience were mainly Celtic Daz, and I was up watching. I was doing the desk, you know, lighting sound cues such as they were, because we couldn't afford anybody. So I said, I'll do it, and they bother. I quite like doing that. And I'm watching them, and there's bits where it's a wee bit, you know, it's a lower bit, no going for comedy. You can see all these guys nodding each other and looking at each other. That's us, you know. So that thing, when they identify with it, I think that helps it as well. So the plan is, we were supposed to be touring it next year, or towards the end of this year. And the guy who was doing it, he took no well, which is a Celtic Daz thing as well. You know, we've all got these ailments and things. He's going to get a bit of work. I says, right, what we'll do is we'll try and get a couple of dates going just to keep the momentum going. So Raymond's got 3 dates lined up. Do you want me to tell you what the dates
Yes,
are?
please.
See if I can remember. It was 31st of October at the Lantern in Cumbernauld. And then we're in Beacon Arts Centre, Greenock, on the Sunday the 16th of October. And then the stand, which will be the new stand, which is Webster's, was Webster's, where Jim's, a lot of players, Jim's put on there. That's the day after, which is Monday the 17th. So it's only 3 dates. And Raymond Mears even got the domain, is that what you call it? www.celticdaz.com. It's Celtic, as it, it's just DAS, there's no apostrophe, so don't get hung up on that. And all the details is there. And the plan is, the day these 3, I mean, you can maybe tweak a wee bit, maybe a couple of wee things, make it more of the production, a wee bit more involved. And then next year, if everything goes well and everything's fine, we'll tour it. A sort of bigger tour, take it out to up Aberdeen, Wine, Dundee, and all the these places.
Dunfermline.
Dunfermline.
Go that far? You go that far?
Dunfermline. I played Dunfermline. We only to the Alhambra.
Oh,
And Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
Played in there as well. So that would be the plan. We would spread it out, and rightly Celtic. There's Celtic supporters everywhere. So maybe you maybe look at across the pond, or maybe or Ireland, obvious. And then who knows, maybe Australia or something like that, or I don't know, Russia. That's probably.
This man played Vegas, didn't he?
Aye.
You took yours to Vegas.
Yeah, that was a bit surreal. But yeah, the other thing is that Celtic Daz, it's only 2 guys, so it's easily transferable.
It's 2 guys sitting at a table,
Yeah,
and I we've got 2 props or something like that.
that's what I always think. I could mine are always a table and some chairs, and that's it. Because I can't be bothered.
No, you're
Things
quite
like
right.
couches.
You're-
How do you get the couch in there?
No.
They had a van. Don't
See,
have
this
a
is the
van.
thing that the actors don't need to worry about.
No.
It's the director, stroke writer, who agonises
Talent.
over this.
Talent.
The talent.
The talent,
It's
sorry.
Greg Wallace territory we're in now. Talent. But no in that way. No, in that way. No, no.
Aye, different way.
A good talented way. No, I would agonise over that. And then realise, it's just a way how to tell a story in the simplest way possible, and no having complicated light and
Yeah.
setups, and just
Yeah, don't want that.
and let the words speak for themselves. And I think that's what the boys did. To be fair, and they were absolutely buzzing that night when they come off. I mean, they're stand-ups, and they've done a bit of acting, and they're very good actors because I'm biased, but stand-ups tend to have excellent timing when it comes to telling jokes.
Yeah.
A lot of actors don't. You don't always get some actors just, they just don't have that feeling. They don't hesitate or they buy in, and they were absolutely. So they were in the dressing room, and they were absolutely buzzing with it. So it's great. From
Rightly so. I mean, that's a hard shift with 2 of them. Just the 2 of them.
just the 2 of them. And I loved watching the 2 of them. I mean, Raymond's energy, and Bruce was just quietly and just all these wee nods and getting up. Everything he does is slow and still, and Bruce is like Raymond's like manic. It just was. So I was very, very pleased with that. That it was exactly what I wanted. We all got what we wanted out of it. So aye.
Well, hopefully we can push it, Phil, because the ticket link and the website, the new domain,
It's all there.
will be under the video.
Yes, no, absolutely, and I hope, come on, there's a lot of Celtic fans out there. Greenock certainly. That's the big Celtic. Is
It's a lovely theatre as well. And
it's a great wee theatre as well. It's brilliant. I played there a couple of times myself. The Billy Bremner thing that I did, which that's another story. Which Jim came to see as well. Did you get in that?
I never missed Phil Diffler's toss.
See, there you go. See, Jim,
never missed that.
Brilliant.
I couldn't believe it. It's sold out. Do you remember that first night with Billy Bremner?
That's what the
Talk
Fringe.
was,
That's what the Fringe.
the guy, there was all these Stirling guys come in, right? Come out of school out there, so that's sort of be a Samoans bond and all that. And the first line of the play is time, where does it go, right? So I goes out and I goes, time, where does it go? And these 3 guys got up and left. And I went, I said, I could do that because there's something I said, and they said, oh, we thought it was a play about Billy Bremner. I said, all right, just keep going. And they went in and sat in the bar. They'd obviously tell their wives they were going to a play. And the wives are going, aye, right. And they're going, no, we're going to a play. Ken. If they're at work and we're just going to go to a play. And they just sat there and get pissed. Right. And they're going, no offence, none taken. They walk. I think I started again that night. I'd lost my thread, But no, aye. So Celtic Daz, yes, please, folk come and see it and get a laugh. And then, as you say, yours is on next
August, but I'll be shamelessly plugging this like every 2 minutes.
No, you've got to, because it's the idea that everybody knows what's happening. You've got to tell people.
Did you see it last time?
I did see it last time. I did. I was talking to Murdo was there with, do you know one of the ones you did? What was the one you did and Big Yogi was there?
Bertie the first night.
I was
Aye.
like,
Were you greeting?
John Hughes.
Hughes.
I was standing behind Matt Gallagher, and I'm saying to Matt, you know Matt was one of yours as well, Matt.
Like Matthew, aye.
And I'm going, Yogi Hughes. And he still looked like
He looked at goals.
he could do
The
it.
story behind that one is actual for every good time.
Absolutely, yes.
So the story behind it is I like to try to plug it. So basically, John Hughes Jr., I saw him on Twitter, I ended up chatting, long story short. Anyway, in January, it was going to go in September, in January, I said, any chance to get your dad to probably a poster? I think, I need to bother him. So, and he wasn't well. So he picked up John Dolan a poster, and I thought, I can't show that to anyone, basically. And Bertie went down the hill, we met Bertie in August, and in January, he went really downhill, holding a poster, I can't use that. But what Yogi Jr. said, basically, is that we made you play a target for him, basically. And he was at a stage where he was hardly out of the house, hardly anything, and he started walking, and he was walking every day and walking every day, and they made it a big event to come into play. And I think it was about 14 of the clan came, and most of them from Belfast, I think. And then John Hughes, his Lisbon Lions was, and he looks $1 million. And then the highlight of the whole thing was the fact that they were wanting to go on the stage at the end. So John Fallon, not John Fallon, he's everywhere. And they hugged on the stage. And that was the most poignant thing, wasn't it? It was the most poignant
I was walking behind
Tears
him.
to your eyes.
And he was walking very slowly.
Yeah.
He was walking behind him, and it was still the big shudders, the big.
Yeah.
And I was going, fucking Yogi, sorry for him.
Yeah.
Going, Yogi, yes. I just couldn't believe it. Because Ronnie was the ultimate hero, but Yogi was the first Celtic guy that I ever sort of was aware of, and it was a game, 64-65, heavy frost, snow and everything at Celtic Park. Yogi wore gutties, and they beat Aberdeen 8-0, and he scored 5. And I mean, that as a wee boy, you go, wow, that's superstar.
That's comic book stuff.
And I thought, and you run about with these zannies on, and they won 8-0, and there he was, and he kind of looked the same, didn't he? I mean, it's like,
He looked brilliant. He looked
like, a wee bit of exercise, you could get back out and play.
And he died about 7 months after.
Yogi
Jr. said it was such a highlight to have all the family together for sort of one last time, and he was going to thank for the play. The fact he managed to do that. So that took. Yeah, when you hear these stories like that, you think, well, that's
it's a wonderful thing. That is, and I love it that the players get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
Like Tommy Boyd was there. The last one he did.
Yeah.
Murdo was there. I bumped into wee Murdo. I was in Costa and Braehead, and I'm looking.
See, you bump into people.
I've done a couple of dinners with Murdo. I'm going, that's Murdo. It's Murdo McLeod. And I don't, you may not believe this, but I don't really like just walking. I'm going, how you doing? You know who I am? Do you remember me? I am quite shy about things like that. And Murdo's sitting there with Mary, his wife, and I go, I'm just going to go and say it. And there was a wee bit of, God, it's you, Phil. And we sat down and we talked about it. And Mary says, right, I'm going to do the shot. And we sat with Blair for about 2 hours. I knew that just goes like that.
Aye.
And so he was up, and he's Murdo's one of the greatest of health. He's better than he was now. He got up. And we had a lovely chat and things like that. But Murdo was there that night as well with Mary, and they get such a love for it. It's great. I mean, and it's this thing, as I mentioned earlier, like actors and things like that. You can't beat it when you meet a football player. I mean, see,
Well, it's only since the play started I've actually met a few players, unlike you and unlike Mr. Dykes, who's got a kind of like a book full of people.
You never lose that thing.
No. We went to I get invited, for some reason I got invited to one of the sports clubs that dances. Murdo was going to be the main guy there, and he spoke afterwards on it. And then he'd been to see Bratback before.
All right.
And it's that kind of thing where he doesn't know who you are. Sort of
Aye.
And he went to the toilet and I was going to wait, and he said, Jim, how you doing?
And you go,
Murdo. And we spoke for 20 minutes, and it was like that kind of, you say, like, Murdo McLeod, I'm talking to Murdo McLeod. I have his phone number.
There was one time we did Only an Excuse on the tour. We toured, we were in the pavilion one night. It was opening night. I think it was a video night, and we had a lot of ex-players there and things like that. And we're in the bar at the pavilion. I don't know if it's still there. In the stalls up the back, there was a bar, and Jim Baxter was standing there, and I was standing there with my 2 pals, both called Pat, Fickle South, guess what team they supported, and they were standing like that. And Jim Baxter went and he went, Phil, come here. And I went, see when I went back, they went, you know Jim Baxter? And they're Celtic fans, you're like, you know Jim Baxter? And they're like that, and they're waving their arm, and I go, you know, it's just, no, you can't. I go, it's just there. You go, and there's Jim just down there, you know, like. Yeah,
You must be pinching yourself.
Every
Journey
single
you've been
time.
on. The journey you've been on.
Every single time, Jim. Absolutely, it is. It's incredible. And it also shows you the positive impact that you guys can have with your work and your art as well, and you should never forget that. But we're going to share off all the links, and hopefully it sells out again,
Brilliant.
Phil.
Yes.
You come back the next time, I'll give you your book that you're due and your testimonial plaque as well. Thank you both for joining me again
It's been an
on
absolute
A Celtic
pleasure.
State of Mind.
Thank
Cheers,
you,
Paul.
John.
Thanks again for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind. Come back and join us at 6 o'clock next Friday, for this is Acsom.